Hey coders, welcome back to our UIKit series. Today we're covering one of the most essential concepts for building responsive interfaces in iOS, auto layout. We'll go over the basics, learn to use constraints in Storyboard, and build a very simple login screen that adjusts beautifully to different screen sizes. So let's go ahead and get started. You can, of course, add this to an existing project if you'd like. I'm just going to start from scratch for this tutorial here. I'm just going to select an iOS app here, give it a name. I'll just call it auto layout example. And we're going to make sure our interface is on Storyboard. We're working in UIKit after all. Language Swift, everything looks great. I'm going to go ahead and create my project. But essentially what we're going to be doing today, and again, feel free to add this to any of your projects or follow along, is we're going to be creating a very simple UI, and we're going to show you how auto layout works. So depending on what device, what phone screen you're going to be using, when we do think of iOS devices, right? My phone, I have the iPhone SE3, I think. It's actually a very small iPhone. I prefer smaller phones. I want it to be able to work on that device as well as on an iPad, my friend's iPhone 16, right? Because of these sizes of the screens kind of change and update, we need to kind of use these auto layouts to ensure no matter what iOS device the user is running on, that our layout's going to be applicable. So for mine, I'm just going to make some very basic adjustments to my UI. I'm just going to add like a little bit different of a background color here, just so our UI elements kind of pop off. And I'm going to add 4 elements today. The first one I'm going to add is a text field here, so UI text field. I'm just going to add it to the center of the screen here. You can make it a little bit bigger if you want. I'm just going to add some placeholder text. I'm going to have this one be username. So I'm just going to make it like a mock login. I'm going to add a second text field here. Doesn't really matter what the sizing is because our auto layout is going to kind of fix this for us. I'm going to say password for this one. And then I'm actually going to add 2 buttons. Oops, button. I'm going to add 2 gray buttons here. And for this first one, I'm going to call this one login. And then for the second one here, forgot password question mark. So they are currently different sizes, but I'm actually going to show you in auto layout how we can kind of fix that. For the foreground color, I'm just going to change that to be white so our login kind of pops off a little bit more because the gray is kind of not that bold. Maybe our background will make it black. So it just kind of has this really big contrast here. Oh, and I didn't put the placeholder text for that one. I actually just said password in there. So for the placeholder text, this is something when the user interacts with it, it's kind of grayed out. And when they start typing, it kind of disappears. If you were to add the text here, for all intents and purposes, they might have to delete it, right? Placeholder text is kind of just like this text you don't really interact with, kind of tells the user what you're supposed to put there. Whereas text, that's like what you would actually, have the user input in those text fields. So make sure you have the placeholder text, unlike me. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually add auto layout to constrain the position of the username and password text fields. So we're going to select our username text field here first. And at the bottom of your screen here, so you should see this kind of little square box. I'll zoom in on it here in our example here with kind of some lines coming out of it. And when we hover over it, it'll say add new constraints. So we're going to go ahead and press that. And we're going to have this new box come up. And what we have here is we have constraints from the top of the screen. We have constraints to the leftmost of the screen and to the rightmost. We also have any elements underneath. So what we can do is we can actually set these constraints, and we'll be able to kind of say, no matter what the screen size is, I want it to be maybe 20 units away from the top. Let's have it be maybe 50 points on left and right. And you'll also see as we change the values here, these kind of lines are getting lit up because these are going to be added. These constraints are going to, whenever we have a different phone screen, and we'll show this visually, these are going to adjust by that many units. We can even have something to the bottom of it as well. So let's set this to also be 20. We're going to leave the constraints to margins on. And let's go ahead and add that. You can also add a certain constraint for width and height, but because we kind of want this to fit to this screen, we're going to go ahead and just leave it for these constraints at the top here. And you'll see now we kind of have these lines appear on our user interface, and these are going to basically create that buffer on our screens. We'll show you what it looks like on a different phone in a moment. Let's also do the exact same thing for our password here. So we're going to select it, and you'll already see that 20, the constraint of 20 has already been added. If you just want to make double check, you can also click or unclick on these constraints to add or not include them. So I think we had 20, 50, 50. And we don't really have anything underneath here right now, so we don't necessarily have to add the bottom constraint. It's totally up to you. Let's go ahead and add these three constraints. And we'll see here now, we do also have these lines representing the constraint of the screen, but they're kind of uniformed, right? They're exactly 20 spaces apart. They're both 50 away from either side of the phone edge. And if we actually change what our phone is kind of being displayed on here, so mine's currently on the iPhone 16. You can click on it where it says iPhone 16 or on this little phone symbol here. We can see what it looks like on iPhone 8 Plus, but I think the biggest difference is going to be on the iPad, which is huge, right? So you can see because we've added these auto constraints to our username and password that they've kind of, they're always going to be a certain amount of pixels away from either edge. It's going to make sure that it's uniform, right? Our login and password are kind of out here on the left side of the screen. If we were to kind of ship this app out today, this kind of looks a little bit clunky. The username and password is a little bit long, but hey, we have like the bigger size screen on the iPad anyway, so it looks a lot better this way, right? It allows you to kind of just, no matter what device the user is using, we can even go to a smaller one. So I mentioned I have the iPhone SE, right? In the smaller version of the phones, right, the forgot password's now clipping off the side, but our username and password are still beautiful. They still fit normally. They're uniform. They look great. So that's kind of how you can kind of have that auto layout to make it easy to ensure that these elements remain like properly spaced regardless of the actual screen size. So let's go ahead and add a different kind of layout. I have two buttons here, and they're a little bit different in size. I'm just going to go back to the iPhone 16 here. It's a little easier to use. Where is it? There we go. All right, cool, but what if we want to adjust things horizontally? What we can actually do is, I'm actually going to take our forgot password because it's a little bit long here, and I'm going to Option Enter in order to make that go to the second line. What we can actually do is space out both of these elements horizontally to kind of make them the same length. We want to kind of have those uniform buttons. So if we want to go ahead and select our login button and our forgot password button, so we can hold shift and select both, we can go down to add new constraints, and let's go ahead and check the box here where it says equal widths. Let's go ahead and add that constraint. And next, what we're going to do is we're going to select our login here. And we're going to say top constraint, maybe we'll put this to be 50. And then we'll also add a left constraint, and we'll set this to be 20. So let's add those two constraints. We're going to do the exact same thing for our forgot password. So I believe we had 20, or is it 50? Oh no, I don't remember. I'm a goldfish. And then 20 on the right side here. And now both of our buttons are going to be the exact same size. Even if we wanted to kind of make sure there's less of a gap between the two, we can select both, do 50, and add 20 on each side, make sure they're equal widths. And now this essentially makes sure that they're both, kind of an equal distance between each other. We can even have them be the exact same heights. So let's add the equal heights as well. And now our buttons are super duper uniform. So you can not only, group and constrain elements to the side of the screen, vertically, you can also do horizontally, choose what kind of buffer room you want in between each element. And even if we rotate our phone screen here, You'll notice that everything is still the exact same size. Our login forgot password. They're the same height, the same thickness, right? Same width. I don't know why I said thickness. All right, and we can even see here on the simulator, even if we rotate the phone, right? Everything is staying within those constraints. Oh, my phone's going all over the place. But just pretty cool stuff here, and even just for like the placeholders, you can kind of type over and override the names. You don't have to like delete where it says don't actually make your passwords 1, 2, 3. But yeah, it allows you to kind of have these uniform buttons, and we can even see with the text changes. It's all good there. So pretty cool stuff. Something as you're kind of working in these storyboards when you're creating it, you'll probably often get those little yellow caution signs that are kind of just like, hey, this might be some clipping. Please use auto layout in order to make sure that these elements don't clip off the screen or kind of clip over each other, because that wouldn't be a very good UI to have. One other cool feature I'd like to mention is you can actually align things like kind of vertically or horizontally perfectly in the middle of your screen here. So if I go ahead and just add another UI button here, let's add a filled button, and we'll just add a little text here, and we'll just say like hello UI kit, right? Say we move it over to kind of the left, we want it to be perfectly in the middle. There is a bar right next to the constraints called align, and you can see here that we can align it horizontally in the center. So it's going to kind of put it in the very center of the screen no matter what, horizontally. We can actually also do the same thing for vertically. So it's going to be, if we have both of them, that's going to be in the dead perfect center of your screen. Even if we change this, to be an iPad, right? This is something that's also going to adjust. So just wanted to make you aware of that feature as well. If you want to put something always directly in the very middle of your screen. And that's it for our introduction to auto layout in UIKit. Today we learned how to use constraints to build a responsive login screen in Storyboard. Auto layout is an essential tool for any iOS developer, and mastering it will make interfaces look polished on any device. If you enjoyed this tutorial, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for any more UIKit lessons. And until next time, dream big and code bigger.